Hello everyone, it's Foo here, and today I am using the epitome of evil, which is inevitably going to be a cat, in the form of a newly buffed Meowstic. First, a bit of context. This last weekend was the Blueberry Prologue, which was a competition where you could only use Pokemon in the Blueberry Pokedex. So there were tons of starters available, including most notably Rillaboom and Incineroar, the new Paradox Pokemon like Walking Wake, Raging Bolt, and Iron Boulder, and out of nowhere the crazy powerful Terrapagos, which has an insane stat total when it terastallizes, and a signature move which is base 120 power, hits both opponents, can't be resisted, and is super effective against terastallized Pokemon. It's pretty ridiculous. So obviously when choosing a Pokemon to sweep through such threats, the mind immediately jumps to Meowstic. About the aforementioned buffs, Meowstic Male for the first time gets access to stored power. Previously, only Meowstic Female has had access to this move. So Game Freak have finally solved gender inequality by giving this to Meowstic Male too. My idea for the team was to have Pokemon to boost their stats, and then prankster Meowstic Male to psych up those stat boosts and go for stored power sweeps. But the evilness of this team is contained within the Smeargle Alolan Muck combo. You may already know what that does. If you don't, I'll show you in a second. But that's not all for this team. I have a secondary mode with Shell Smash Blastoise, which is pretty fun, and ironically for it being the Tortoise mode, I call it the fast mode. And we have a Porygon Z, which is definitely my favourite part of this team, aside from the Meowstic Male. So to show you how this team functions, I guess we can jump straight into a battle. So on team preview, my opponent quite evidently has a Sun team, so I'm going to go with the Alolan Muck mode of the team, and we can see how that fares. So my opponent leads with Venusaur and Torkoal. Venusaur seems to have developed a plastic surgery addiction between Generation 8 and 9, and I lead with Smeargle and Porygon Z. Now the sun goes up and immediately Torkoal terastallizes, threatening huge fire type damage on my team. But fortunately I go for Fake Out into the Venusaur and a Terra Blast into the Torkoal, and that just KOs the Torkoal, which demonstrates the power of adaptability boosted choice specs Porygon Z with a modest nature, just doing tons of damage, even though it's a base 80 power move. That was crazy. You can see that I've got Moody on Smeargle, so I'm getting special defense boosts, which is pretty good for a team that was quite heavily stacked with special attackers. Mentioning one, Walking Wake's coming in, it's getting a speed boost, which is not as threatening as a special attack boost, so that's quite nice for me. Right now I want to switch into Muck, because part of this strategy is for Smeargle to faint while Muck is on the field, so that Muck's power of alchemy takes on Smeargle's Moody ability. I go for Follow Me with Smeargle, hoping that the opponent would just take out my Smeargle, but because of the special defense boost, that Hydro Steam is not even going to take me down to my Focus Sash, and actually Venusaur locked in Sleep Powder, so Smeargle goes to sleep, which is kind of annoying, but I don't really think I can be commenting on other players' strategies being annoying while I'm using this strategy. I go for Protect on Muck this turn because I want to avoid any damage or being put to sleep, while Smeargle has the while Smeargle can burn some sleep turns and then go for a Follow Me, allowing Muck to set up quite freely on the following turn. Hopefully, anyway, that's the plan. Smeargle stays asleep, gets another defense boost, and drops its special attack, which is kind of fine, but it's all sort of irrelevant right now because I just want Smeargle to faint, and it doesn't wake up for the Follow Me, but the Walking Wake targets it anyway, which is really good news for me because that means that Muck is going to assimilate the Moody ability thanks to its Power of Alchemy ability, so now Muck is now going to get the stat boost at the end of each turn. Venusaur hits another Sleep Powder, which is rather unfortunate, but it's the way it goes. I can't really be talking about luck when I'm kind of using Moody, which is definitely based around luck, and I get a special defense boost, which is fantastic, because Muck is already very specially bulky. It means that these Pokemon aren't threatening it too much at all. Now I do have Meowstic in the back, but I decided to bring in Porygon Z here, because I know that the opponent will consider it a threat and probably target it, allowing Muck to get more boosts off and also burn more turns of sleep before Meowstic comes in, and then I'll try to psych up those boosts. So PZ is asleep, it doesn't actually get a chance to attack. but I do wake up with Muck and I can get my first minimize off, which boosts my evasion, which is really nice. So now hopefully the opponent can start missing some of their moves, especially the sleep powders, which are becoming quite annoying. Anyway, the sun dies, the photosynthesis wears off, but it turns out that the Walking Wake had a booster energy anyway. I'm getting more special defense boosts, which is absolutely insane. Muck is now going to be an absolute special tank. Porygon Z goes down now, kind of fine. The whole point was for it to take attention away. Looks like the sleep powder missed there because it took so long for the animation to play, but nope. So that, even with the evasion boost, the Venusaur is just sleeping my Muck all the time. It hasn't missed a sleep powder yet. Pretty annoying. Again, I can't really comment on how annoying opponent strategies are. I get a defense boost with Muck, but another special attack drop, which is kind of fine. It means that Muck's very bulky and will be hard to take down. You can see the stat changes here. I've got defensive boosts, but special attack drops. Meowstic can psych that up. It will have a very powerful stored power. It will be a very high base power, but it will be coming off a very low special attack because Meowstic doesn't have the highest special attack, and I've got -2 special attack. The Venusaur is still hitting those sleep powders despite both of my Pokemon having +2 evasion. I do just go for a Toxic on the Walking Wake so that I can start having some passive damage on the opponent while they are struggling to hit me and struggling to do any kind of damage to me as well. And I've healed up like so much of my health with Muck as well, so this is all, it's kind of an alright position, but it's just trying to get past that Venusaur's sleep. Now I get a special defense boost and a defense drop. Defense drop could be a bit iffy depending on what the opponent has in the back. I'm just speeding this up because this portion is a lot of Venusaur putting my Pokemon to sleep, Muck stacking up some more stat boosts, and then Walking Wake taking some damage, trying to hit a Draco and Meteor, not succeeding the first time, and then actually hitting my Meowstic with a Draco Meteor the next turn, which does barely any damage because of all the special defense boosts it has, and because of the special attack drops that Walking Wake then gets, the opponent chooses to switch it out. So we're basically now in a position where my opponent wants to switch out. They actually switch in their Gouging Fire, which is a physical attacker, and both of my Pokemon have more special defense than physical defense boosts, so this could be doing more damage to my Pokemon. I go for a stored power with Meowstic. It does very little damage to Venusaur. Despite stored power being very high power, my Meowstic has very low special attack right now, so that's not ideal. Muck does wake up and I get a minimize off, which is fantastic, so hopefully now Venusaur will finally start missing their sleep powders. And I do get some more stat changes with Moody at the end of the turn, so Muck gets a special attack increase, which is very tempting for my Meowstic, and it gets a speed drop. So looking at the stats now, Muck has tons of boosts, and it has a special attack boost rather than drop. So I'm taking this turn to Psych Up with Meowstic, and now Stored Power will have 300 base power coming off a boosted special attack stat, so it should be able to one-hit KO everything. But the Venusaur still hits its sleep powders! What are they feeding this Venusaur? Absolutely wild that I have so many evasion boosts, and they are still hitting their base 75% accurate move. I finally get rid of the Venusaur with a knockoff from Muck, and turns out they had the wide lens, so it was only 82% accurate, so obviously it should be hitting every single one of the sleep powders. Just craziness. But again, this strategy kind of relies on luck and also positioning. You have to play this team well. But yeah, anyway, we're coming towards the end game. They have 2 Pokemon left. I have a uber boosted up stored power Meowstic, so hopefully we can get over the finish line. I also have defensive boosts on both of my Pokemon, so neither of them should be going down, even if they are hit by moves. But let's see. Walking Wake goes for a Protect. I go for a Protect with my Muck because I don't want the Gouging Fire to have boosted Stomping Tantrum. If the Gouging Fire misses a Stomping Tantrum, you have to Protect, because if it hits into a Protect, then the Stomping Tantrum won't be boosted in damage. That's an important part to note, because Stomping Tantrum can be an issue for this team. When they eventually hit, it might be a very high base power. Muck's getting some special attack boosts, very irrelevant for Muck right now, and I don't need it on Meowstic because it's already going to be doing all the damage with a 300 power stored power. The Stomping Tantrum does come out. You can see it barely does any damage because of my Protect play last turn and because I've got some defense boosts. So just a technical little play to work out there. I do get the Toxicon Gouging Fire, which spells the end of my opponent because now both of their Pokemon are on a timer, and it's unlikely that they'll be able to do enough damage to my Pokemon. Even if I didn't have the evasion boosts, just with the defense boosts, I probably would be able to win this one. But anyway, we just see all the poison working out. You can see Walking Wake is looking very ill with that poison, not long for this world. We get some recovery on my Pokemon, and the special attack goes up again with Muck, so I mean, I could Psych Up with my Meowstic to get the most ridiculously strong Psych Up, but it's really not necessary. So this turn, the Hydro Steam comes out into the Muck, blocked by Protect. The Stomping Tantrum comes out into the Muck as well from the Gouging Fire. That's blocked by Protect as well. And my Meowstic eventually wakes up, and I am going to go for the stored power into the Gouging Fire, a very bulky Pokemon, and it gets one-shot by that stored power. So all of that setup, and finally we get that powerful one-hit KO from Meowstic. And that, generally, in these battles, is the point where opponents realise that they're about to be swept by Meowstic and they cancel the battle. I mean, Walking Wake probably only had one turn left of poison damage anyway, so we were only one turn away, but I did manage to win that one. You can see how evil this strategy is, because it can take quite a long time to get all those boosts for Meowstic, and unfortunately for the person playing against it, it can be quite frustrating, but I do have to say it's quite fun playing it because you have to be very technical with your positioning. You saw the plays around Stomping Tantrum, that's something to bear in mind. And just a point about why I chose Meowstic Male as the Psych Up stored power sweeper, it's because once Muck has the boosts, the biggest risk to the stored power strategy is if you bring in your Pokemon and the opponent can take them out before they get the Psych Up off. And that can be the case with most other Psych Up users, but because Meowstic Male has the Prankster ability, it gets that Psych Up off very reliably, gets those evasion boosts, and is then safe. And it's also a Psychic type, so it still gets same type attack bonus on stored power, so it still does tons of damage with stored power. That is why I think Meowstic is the perfect Psych Up stored power user in the Blueberry Prologue. I think in general in Regulation F, there are alternative Pokemon with just much higher base stats that are fast enough to pull it off, so something like Latias can definitely work there. Another really cool thing to note is that Psych Up goes through Protect. That's a really important thing for you to know with this team. You can Protect and Psych Up the stat changes. So I'm just showing it done here. My Meowstic has some good stat boosts, and I can start going for stored powers, take out an Iron Leaves, and that's when the opponent forfeited in that match. So there are definitely some mechanics you have to bear in mind with this team. Just a word about Porygon Z. This is a super crucial part to the team. A lot of people are aware of Smeargle Muck and will lead their counter to that. So that's why having Fake Out Smeargle next to Porygon Z, so I can one-hit KO their counterplay to Smeargle Muck before I then bring in my Muck, is really, really powerful. And the way I can do that is just faking out that Pokemon or the other Pokemon depending on who I'm going up against, and Hyper Beaming them for an immediate KO. Basically nothing that takes neutral damage from Hyper Beam will be able to survive it, and even some things that resist aren't able to take it. But it's a really powerful way to remove one of your opponent's Pokemon. I would call it a reliable way of removing one of your opponents, aside from the fact that Hyper Beam only is 90% accurate, and so it does miss relatively regularly, which really, really sucks, so just bear that in mind. Also, this wouldn't be a foofootoo team without a hilarious way of one-hit KOing Incineroar. So you can see here that my Porygon Z is actually Terra Fighting, which means that I get the adaptability boost on my Terra Blast, which is Fighting type, so I can go for Terra Blast and just one-hit KO these Incineroars. Very, very funny. It's not the only reason why I'm running Terra Fighting Terra Blast. I've mentioned Terrapagos, and this is definitely one of the biggest threats in this format. It has the Terra Shell ability, which makes the first move that hits it a resisted hit. But what you can do on the first turn is fake it out with Smeargle, which counts as the first hit. It breaks the Terra Shell, causes Terrapagos to flinch, but it then allows Terra Fighting Terrablast to one-hit KO Terrapagos, which is normal type, and it can't change its type with Terrastalization, because it can only Terrastalize to Stellar, which retains its original typing defensively. So it's a really quick way just to remove one of the most powerful pieces on the opponent's team. You don't always have to rely on Muck for this Psych Up strategy. In this battle that I'm showing you now, Smeargle itself has racked up a lot of boost just because I've been sporing the opponent and playing around quite a lot. And so here you can see I've got +6 special attack and a ton of speed, so that when I bring my Meowstic in, I can just Psych it up straight away, and that is an incredible sweeper. I have like stored powers that are well over 200 base power. I can one-hit KO basically everything. Have you ever seen a Meowstic 2-hit KO a Metagross with a Psychic type move? Like, this was kind of incredible. I really liked this battle just to showcase the stored power sweeping of Meowstic. I do also have Charge Beam on my Meowstic as a way of dealing some damage to dark types and a way of boosting my special attack on my own, because if I've psyched up Moody boosts from either Muck or Smeargle and there's a special attack drop, Charge Beam is a way for me to mitigate that and get some boosts myself so that I can really increase the power of that stored power. The last thing I want to talk about today is the fast mode, the Tortoise mode with Blastoise. So in this battle you can see my opponent's team is kind of interesting, a lot of rock and steel types, you'll see why in a sec. I do just decide to lead with my Blastoise, so you can see it do its job. My opponent leads off with Cleavor and Alolan Dug Trio, as I lead off with my Blastoise and Meowstic. Usually you would lead a Fake Out Pokemon like Rillaboom or Smeargle next to Blastoise to help it get the Shell Smash off, but I could see that none of my opponent's Pokemon could learn Fake Out, so I felt like I didn't need to do that. Cleavor very reasonably predicts a Fake Out coming from either Meowstic or Blastoise, as they both do learn it, but actually that wasn't my plan for this turn. I just wanted to go for the Shell Smash. Alolan Dug Trio sets up the Sandstorm, which kind of explains why all of my opponent's Pokemon do not take Sandstorm damage or benefit from the Sandstorm in some way, so I guess that's what they were going for with this team. I get the Shell Smash off and the White Herb activates, which is really important so that I don't get defense drops on my Meowstic too. And I do get buffeted by the sand. That's no big deal, especially for a Meowstic which has the leftovers. So this next turn, I now have a very strong Blastoise, and I can go for a Muddy Water, which threatens both of my opponents, as I can just Psych Up with my Meowstic. So I'm in a reasonably good position here. The Superior comes in. Pretty funny here if I gave it an accuracy boost with my Muddy Water. That would be kind of funny, because then their Leaf Storms wouldn't miss. I do take out the Alolan Dug Trio, which is great, and I now have a very speedy, very powerful Meowstic with a base 140 power stored power coming off a +2 special attack stat. So you can see why this is the fast mode. Like, both of my Pokemon are just dealing so much damage from the off. And again, it's probably a mode that most people wouldn't predict on Team Preview. They'd probably tunnel on the Alolan Muck Smeargle strategy. So it's just another way to take your opponents off guard. Now my opponent's switching in their Cleavor again. They actually Terrastalize into a ground type on Superior, presumably to hit like poisons and steals. Doesn't work out for them because obviously stored power will just one-hit KO that. So that goes down, and they're just left with their Cleavor to take a single target Muddy Water. It might have been able to survive if it was a spread move, considering the Sandstorm boost, and maybe it would have an AV or something like that, I don't know. But it doesn't take it. And my Pokemon are looking very strong here. I think my opponent, yeah, they just disconnect. So that's a shame. But yeah, this is the fast mode. You can see why. You get your sweepers very powerful. The Muddy Water damage from Blastoise really helps with Meowstic just getting those KOs with stored power. So that's the team. I really enjoyed using Meowstic. As I said, this team is actually very fun to use, but I do apologize to all of my opponents who got frustrated playing me. But don't worry, The Blueberry Prologue is now over, it can't hurt you anymore, it's done, it's in the past, and this team will be benched forever. Meowstic will never see the light of day again. No, that's not true. It's kind of okay if you want to set screens maybe, although Grimmsnarl is still probably the better pick. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content. All that's left to be said is I've been Foo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.